On this episode of the Bender Hour.
She may have said no, but it was mostly roleplay.
She might have said no, but in my eyes it was mostly yes.
I did not make one truthful statement to that fucking therapist.
How often has a caveman ever reached terminal velocity?
You think when Neil Armstrong puts the flag down that, like, the caveman's gonna walk over, like, pick it up?
Yeah. I think Buzz Aldrin would beat the shit out of the caveman. I love gay sex.
He's got the only caveman with PTSD. He'll be having nightmares for decades.
Do you think he'd kill himself? You'd probably jump off a cliff. Like that caveman. So, you said you wanted to start with something spicy?
So there's been a bit of news that's come out about our former president, and I don't know if you've heard this yet. Obviously, with anything to do with Trump, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because both sides so frequently lie about things he does or say, either to embellish or demean him. But, like, this is a, so Trump is being sued for defamation right now because a woman came out and claimed that he raped her. And as soon as she made the accusation, she said it happened like decades ago or something like that. As soon as she made the accusations, Trump posted on Truth Social and said, like, she's lying, she made it up to sell her shitty book. And now she immediately moved to sue for defamation. So it does almost seem like she planned it. But, so the lawyer that she hired had a meeting with Trump for a dissemination where, like, they actually recorded him. And this is the official transcript of that meeting.
Oh, boy.
So, it's just insane. This reads like something that me and you would come up with. It reads like an AI prompt. It's fucking insane. So here's just one part. I'm going to read off a few parts of it. This part is a quote from Trump. "It is a hoax and a lie, just like all the other hoaxes that have been played on me for the past 7 years. And while I'm not supposed to say it, I will. This woman is not my type." So that's part of Trump's defense. And then here's a little bit of a back and forth between Trump and the lawyer. So the lawyer asks, okay, I was curious. The lawyer is a woman. I don't know why I'm doing like a deeper voice. I don't really feel like doing a woman voice. So you say in this post, use a strange word, which I want to ask you about. You say she completely made up the story that I met her at the doors of this crowd in New York City department store and within minutes swooned her. Do you see that? Yeah. What does swooned her mean? That would be a word, maybe accurate or not, having to do with talking to her and talking to her to do an act that she said happened, which didn't happen. And it's a nicer word than the word that starts with an F, and this would be a word that I use because I thought it would be inappropriate to use the other word. And it didn't happen. Okay, I was curious. Okay, I was curious when I read this, so I looked up the word swoon in the dictionary, and under the dictionary it means to faint with extreme emotion. That's not what you meant here? Well, sort of, that's what she said I did to her. She fainted with great emotion. She actually indicated that she loved it, okay? She loved it until commercial break. In fact, I think she said it was sexy, didn't she? She said it was very sexy to be raped. Didn't she say that?
No, that's not what it says.
That is according to this official transcript. That is what Trump said.
There's no fucking way.
So, sir, I just want to confirm, it's your testimony that E. Jean Carroll said that she loved being sexually assaulted by you? Well, based on her interview with Anderson Cooper, I believe that's what took place. And we could define that. You'll have to show that. I'm sure you're going to show that. But she was interviewed by Anderson Cooper, and I think she said that rape was sexy. Which it's not, by the way. But I think she said that rape was sexy. And it was. She actually said things that were very strange. And then she was a different person after the... When he said, we'll take a break right now, we're going to take a break right now. He didn't like what she was saying. He was very upset with what... And then she came back, and she was a much different woman in the second half, so to speak. That's all I really wanted to read from this.
She said rape was so hot, which it isn't.
It isn't, by the way. I totally don't like that.
When it comes to maybe having sexually assaulted a woman with my penis, which didn't happen, I would say certain rapey events may or may not have taken place sexually with her. Untrue.
She may have said no, but it was mostly roleplay.
She might have said no, but in my eyes it was mostly yes. It's like, I had to look up in a dictionary what swoon meant. Are you retarded?
Yeah.
Aren't you a lawyer?
Are you kidding me?
Are you kidding me? Like, that's what I would have said. Like, you have to look up what swoon meant.
That's what I thought when reading it too. Like, why did you have to look it up? And then they use the wrong definition of swoon in this case.
Yeah.
They use fainting when it's very clearly supposed to be like
flirting.
Attracting someone, yeah, like flirting.
Like, neither of them know what they're talking about.
I just can't believe so much of this. And when I first read this article, like the first article I read about this, I was like, this has to be fake. Like, there's no way. But then I did some searching, and there's, like CNNBC reported on it, like BBC reported on it, a bunch of actual news sources have reported on this. And, like, this is the official legal document. So if the lawyer is lying about it, they obviously just fucked their whole case up. But it does claim in these documents that this is the transcript of a videotaped conversation. So that means that there is somewhere in the archives, there is video of Donald Trump saying, well, she said that rape was sexy.
Which it isn't.
It isn't. I totally don't agree with it.
As a victim of Trump rape, I don't like it all too much.
Can you define what Trump rape is, sir?
On a good day I might, but I think for the censors I would refrain from doing that, sir.
Personally, if you ask me that question after my morning coffee, I might be more inclined to answer it.
But I'm already in my bedgown. I'm laying in bed. You shouldn't be here.
Why are you in my house?
Why are you in the White House with me?
This deposition did occur at Mar-a-Lago, by the way. Like, they went to Trump's place to ask him these questions.
It's like at his house.
Trump rolls up in his nightie. He's got one of those coned pajama hats on.
He has to, flip up the, eye visor. What's going on? 4 a.m.? Ask me questions about my alleged rape? She said it was sexy. What else do you want?
She said it was sexy, so that means it was completely okay. There is also a part in this, pretty much right at the beginning of Trump's part of the interview, where he says, right after this case is done, I'm gonna sue her, and that's the part I'm really looking forward to. And then he turns to the lawyer and he goes, and I'm gonna sue you too.
After the case is over, I'm gonna rape her again. And then I'm gonna rape you.
She's gonna wish she never came out with those accusations by the time I'm done with her, people.
We like that, don't we, people? Sexual assault.
We like issuing death threats over people.
Even they're not good though. They aren't good.
I would never do it unless you falsely accuse me. Then I'm gonna come for you. I'm gonna put you down.
I'm gonna put you back in the dirt.
I'm gonna put your face in the dirt. I'm gonna rub some dirt in your eyes, people.
just like, what have we been doing for the past like 4 months? Asking like AIs to write Trump transcripts of like stupid shit, and now they hand us a real one on a silver platter.
He just goes out there and says some dumb shit for us. We don't even have to make it up at this point. Just gotta wait for him to talk.
That is incredibly stupid. That was like I had not heard about that at all. So that was.
I'll send you the transcript after this.
So that was a spectacle to behold.
Yeah.
There was something that I wanted to talk about, which isn't political or anything. It's about dreams that I had. I wanted to talk about a dream I had the other day.
Oh boy, knowing you, it's gonna be some dumb shit.
Yes. So if I recall correctly, in this dream, there was like a big focus on traveling via like a bus, and it was like even though everyone inside of it looked like they were just like regular ass adults, like they're on public transport. It was a school bus. Like it was a shitty school bus with like those broken ass like fake leather seats and whatnot
that have all the lighter marks in them.
Yeah, the lighter marks. Some are like split open. There's like fucking like chewing gum wrappers in the seats. So, the whole 10 yards. Fucking nasty. And this bus driver is weaving through like a 6-lane highway, and every single lane is filled with fucking like semi-trailers that are all slightly too wide for the lanes that they're in.
It's like one of those videos. I've been seeing a lot of videos of these recently on Facebook, actually, of Indian bus drivers. Because in like India, they just have these huge highways that don't have lanes. So it'll be this bus driver in a bus full of people just swerving between cars constantly. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. The same streets where, like, not only do they have, like, huge vehicles, like, swerving in and out, but they have those tiny, like, fake 3-wheeled cars that, like, are meant to, like, swerve through other vehicles, like a fucking motorcycle.
So would you say that is analogous to what is happening in your dream at this point?
Yeah, except
just for, like, a mental reference?
Yes, except this one was much more dangerous because everyone was still going, like, 70 miles an hour, like they were on a highway. And this bus driver, he was right on the money. This guy, he was swerving in and out, and like there was a couple people in the bus who were worried. And like I was like thinking to myself, like, holy shit, we're gonna hit one of these things. There's all these like semi-truck trailers, and they have all these like loose things, like loose containers on their flatbeds that are just kind of like jiggling around. They're restrained with like one piece of rope, so they're shifting left and right. And the assholes behind the wheels of these trucks, they're kind of like jerking the wheels left and right to make their truck shake. And that's what every single truck is doing. Like, outside of this bus, every lane is completely packed with these trucks. So the bus driver weaves in and out of all of this shit, and he goes into this tunnel. And this is the part where the dream just... It's like a very bizarre turn. Like I was kind of like sitting there. It was like a very dark tunnel. It wasn't lit at all. Like basically, it's pretty much just like maybe every 100 meters there would be like a single dim blue light. And at the end of it, I can't even explain this. It was my backyard, and there was 2 bronze statues of centaurs fighting each other. And I was told to look at it.
By who?
I don't know. Just like someone who was probably some like form of the bus driver, like whoever like morphed into like.
Were
this...
you still in the bus looking at it, or were you just suddenly on your feet in your backyard?
I was like suddenly transported to my backyard, where I walked over to see this thing, this massive bronze statue of 2 centaurs. It was like life size too, like 2 centaurs fighting each other. They were locked hand to hand, like fucking wrestling each other. One had an eye patch. And even though I don't think this is the case, in the dream I had a huge sense of deja vu, as if I've had this exact dream before. Because I was like, I recognize that statue. And that's like really where anything that I can remember like ended in the dream. And I've just been trying to think about, like, where the fuck did any of that come from? I didn't think about anything even close to that the night before. You know, if there's a lot of people out there that like to try to find the meaning in dreams, and I would be hard pressed to find, you know, the best dream expert on earth that can give me a reasonable explanation for what that dream means. I don't know if you had any like crazy ass dreams that, you know, you have.
Not really. No, I had one dream recently that was it was a decent amount of shit that happened. The only part that I really remember is there's this coworker that's been really friendly to recently, and part of the dream she came up to me with like this sour look on her face and handed me her phone, and it was her boyfriend, and he was like getting pissed at me for talking to her, like being nice to her.
Or he's actually gonna give it to like he was like on the phone.
Yeah, like he was on the phone. Like he called her to like have her give me her phone to talk to me.
That is pretty stupid. I can't stop thinking of those two like centaurs. I really want to know like what that was about.
Yeah, you gotta go to a psychic and get your dreams deciphered.
They're just gonna say some like
centaurs. They embody some great struggle in your life.
Yeah, like crazy. As if like all of human life isn't struggle. Like that's the whole point of their jobs, is just to say very generic stuff that fits like almost everybody's experiences.
You're like Zuko and Bossing Say right now.
Which is like waking up in a hot flash.
Yeah. You got the two dragons fighting over you. It's two centaurs. Do not listen to the eye-patched centaur, Zuko.
I don't know. Like I said, if I talked to like a psychic about it, they would say some generic shit like that. Like, you know, the centaur, you've had struggle in your life, and the centaur's fighting represents. He's like, shut up. Like I could lie and make that sound make it sound convincing enough for someone to pay me, like to have me do that exact job for them.
The best job to have, one of the best jobs to have, is being a psychic, because you literally just get to make shit up and people believe you.
Yeah.
Just say super generic, loose things, and you can just apply it to. They will mentally do the work for you in applying it to something in their life.
Exactly. I mean, that goes for therapists, too. Can you imagine how much money we'd have if we were therapists? The whole point is just to agree with what these, like, sick people are telling you.
I don't think I can make it as a therapist.
I mean,
I might get fired for fucking one of my patients.
I'd get fired because, like, I wouldn't be able to, like, handle listening to these idiots.
I like bad bitches. That's my fucking problem.
Yeah, he's like, oh, what's been troubling you? Like, oh yeah, you know, your parents like really sound awful. You know, they're not treating you right.
Wow,
you know,
your life sucks.
Yeah, you know, yeah, it sounds like no one treats you right. Maybe I could fill that void. All right, well, time's up. That'll be $400.
Here's a Ambien prescription. Get out of my office.
The unspoken heroes of our age. A therapist, just lying to women and giving them drugs.
And, you know, they make all the dyed hair e-girls, so you gotta give them props for something.
You know, and then those women who won't ever know for the duration of their lives that they've been had, the first things they'll say is, you know, why do men, you know, bottle up their emotions? They need to talk. They need to go to therapy. Like me. Oh, yeah, you're a real, you're a real shining example of like what therapy can do to help somebody.
I just like remembering there was one time when I've seen a therapist, because I was having like these really bad stomach problems, and it was giving me like heartburn, which in turn at the time was giving me anxiety. And my doctor had set up an appointment with a therapist, like they made me go to it, and I just lied the entire time. I did not make one truthful statement to that fucking therapist.
What could you like? What were you even lying about?
Well, one of the questions they asked me was, "Do you have a gun in your household?" I'm not fucking telling a therapist that. Are you kidding me?
Like,
They're gonna have the fucking cops show up and take it from me. Like, oh, this guy's suicidal.
Yeah, you gotta, you got like poo pains in your stomach, so we're gonna have to,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to take away your property. I was thinking to myself, like, what the fuck is like the therapist gonna say? Like, I think it'd be really funny if the therapist got.
At that time, they didn't know it was because of like stomach acid. Because I hadn't gone to a fucking gastroenterologist, blah 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 blah.
Like the poop doctor.
Yeah, I hadn't visited a poop doctor yet.
Just thinking like how funny it'd be if like you walked in there and the therapist was like a real dickhead. He's like, "Oh, you have an anxiety because you got poo in your stomach? You want to let it all out, big guy?"
Starts punching me in the stomach.
Yeah, come on. Oh, come on, let it out. Shit on my fucking table. Shit on my fucking room. Splinter all over like a fucking hippo.
So, you don't want to work with me, huh? Like, all right. And that's when they hit the button on the desk and Mike Tyson walks in. I want to make you poop your pants.
You gonna fucking poop your pants one way or another, buddy. I would not want to go there. This asshole's gonna like really. He's gonna fucking. He's gonna switch like a fucking switch. I don't know. Like I had something I wanted to say there, and I just like fucked it up.
I mean, that's the real reason why I couldn't be a therapist. I'd just be like, they'd say something, and I just laugh at them.
Like just say something on my phone, like, huh?
Yeah. You have like your therapist book open with your pen, but really you have your phone in between it, like you're in fucking high school.
I'm playing Flappy Bird. Yeah. And I have the sound on.
You have it on as low as it'll go, just so like you can hear it, but it's very obvious a patient can hear it too.
Yeah, they're like, it's like I think this all stems from my breakup like a month ago. I think, like, and they just, ding, ding.
Oh, so you're single?
Like that gets your attention. Like you suddenly just
your ears
slam the
perk
book
up.
Yeah, man, it's my girlfriend broke up with me. So you're single?
So you're single.
I love gay sex.
I love fucking man butt. Speaking of fucking man butt, did you see recently that an HIV vaccine got to the final stage of trials before it like failed for the CDC?
I haven't seen that, but I have like heard the news about this stuff like gaining traction.
Yeah, it got to the final phase of testing and then it was deemed a failure or whatever, didn't pass. But that's great news. Because now it means you can rock dog all the bitches you want.
But you said it failed like at the final, like at the 11th hour, right?
The final stage of testing.
How does that work? Like, what was the rest of testing that it failed at the end?
Just a bunch of dead babies. I don't know.
Like, I'm trying to think to myself, like maybe I'm, I mean, it's probably just a case of like not knowing how this shit works. But thinking about it failing like just at the end and that gets it thrown out, it's like, what did the vaccine do for 99% of that?
It was working, and then all those people that got tested on just started dropping like flies.
Like the second, like it's like, oh, I cured all of them, and then the second they bring it over to the like CDC, they all drop dead simultaneously. That's the only thing I could think of.
Whoops.
Maybe the whole thing like didn't actually work the whole time, and that it wasn't until the final test that they actually had to like prove that it worked. So like, oh, there's been a problem. We're gonna have to.
Yeah, the whole first part was proving that it was compatible with the human body, and then the final part is proving that it's effective.
It's just like a fake ass saline solution that they're just like trying to like get, like squeeze money out of, and it wasn't until the end that they actually had to like prove their work was real.
And then all these articles are coming out saying that it made it to the last stages before it was denied. It's just a complete farce.
And when we know like shit like that like happens,
there's those articles that say, like, how many peer-reviewed, scientific studies, like, aren't actually peer-reviewed. How many just go up without, like, any sense of, I don't know, community trying to, like, verify them. You can just put up anything you fucking want, because, like, if it's gonna be behind, like, most of them are behind a paywall nowadays, so the amount of people that actually bother to look at your shit to see if it's real is now, like, so incredibly thin. It's borderline 0%. So most people could just get away with, like, fake science and get, like, money for it.
It's funny that you mentioned it, because there's a person on YouTube that I watch, Adam Ragusia. He's like a cooking channel, but he also does videos on, like, the science of different aspects of cooking. And he did one pretty recently, actually, about copper. It was about using copper to form pasta shapes and, like, why it's making a comeback now or something like that. But part of the thing is that he shows that there's, like, a scientific study, and in part of it they link to another scientific study saying, like this study shows that noodles passed through this copper plate are better at absorbing sauce or holding on to sauce or whatever. And then when he clicks on the link to that original study that it links to, the evidence that they have is just the person who wrote it up basically saying, like well, it tasted better when I used the copper. And that's it. Like,
Yeah,
no actual scientific study done. It's just an anecdote in another scientific study.
And shit like that makes you think, like, how much of, like, history has gone in that direction. Like, I'm talking, like, ancient history.
Considering that so many ancient historical transcriptions are secondhand, or it'll just be someone making shit up, like,
probably all of them.
Pretty popular meme of the whole, like it was told to me in a dream, like, that's my source. Like, that, there are accounts of people actually writing shit like that.
Yes.
I saw in a dream what happened in this battle. Or, yeah, just someone writing something that someone else told them. Like, I'm pretty sure the Marco Polo's journals, which we have talked about on the podcast before.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure someone, like, Marco Polo didn't write them. Like, he told them to someone else when he was in jail in Crimea. Because he got, like, arrested for something. Or he was taken captive or something like that. And he was telling it to someone else, and they're the person who, like, ended up writing all of it down as he was telling it to them.
Just get away with, like, faking shit. And it hasn't gotten any less funny through the ages.
Yeah.
There's some things that'll always stay in fashion. Whether it's just, like, drawing, like, dicks on the wall, like graffiti, and lying about great feats.
Yeah, just straight up lying about people just so that, like, future generations don't like them. Not because they really did anything bad or anything like that. Like, I will always continue to believe that Nero, the Roman emperor, wasn't as bad as people make him out to be.
Yeah.
I think, considering that, like, in case people who are listening to this don't know this, I don't think we've talked about it before.
I don't think so.
But about how Nero is the origin of the whole 666 thing, like, being the sign of Satan. Because Nero was so anti-Christian that Christians feared him so immensely. And what they ended up doing was, like, ancient Hebrew has this weird system where you can take any word and make it into a number. And if you took Nero's entire name, it ended up as 666. So that's where, like, Christians hated him so much that they literally assigned him as the devil. And as Satan.
Canonized him as Satan.
Yeah. And that leads me to believe that most of the things we know about Nero now were probably from later people who either destroyed text or altered them to make him into an even worse ruler than he actually was.
Yeah, because, I mean, like, what do you hear about him? Like, fiddled while Rome burnt. It was just, like, insane.
I'm pretty sure the whole fiddling thing was proven false, as by, like, other historical accounts has been proven false already.
Yeah,
and that he actually did like lead efforts to try to put the fire out and rebuild Rome afterwards.
Luckily we have like the video footage.
Or who is? Hold on, let me search up this other Roman.
We got the proof. I mean,
or Commodus. Have you ever heard of Commodus, the other Roman emperor that a lot of people don't like?
I've heard his name. I don't know like anything about him.
The whole thing about him was that he was like obsessed with gladiators, and he wanted to be one. So he would often partake in the sports, and it was kind of seen as a what's the word I'm looking for here? Like a scandal in ancient Rome. That like, oh, like the emperor is doing a slave sport type of thing. And there's all these accounts of him being like mad and being an asshole and like just killing people left and right and all this shit. But it's also well known that Commodus hated the Roman Senate, and he was actually like, most accounts of him now, like even you'll see pretty popular ones, like there's a whole show, a documentary on Netflix about different Roman emperors and like their lives, and it portrays Commodus in a pretty bad light and makes him out like he really didn't know what the fuck he was doing. But in real life, he was actually a very accomplished gladiator, and like he was a very well-skilled archer and fighter of animals and shit. Something that he loved to do was he would bring like different senators to his gladiatorial debuts, and then he would like pull an arrow, kill several animals with one shot, and then look over at the gladiators and kind of like gestures to them like, you're next.
Give him the stink eye.
Yeah. Like, and the Senate fucking despised him because all he did, anytime they like stepped up to him, he would just threaten to kill them. And it's pretty evident now that most of these records of Commodus and his life are just flat out false, because the Roman Senate after his death just wrote up shit about him just to tarnish his name.
Yeah, I mean, back then there was just like a whole different system on like how to deal with disinformation.
Yeah,
it's not
you
like
could literally write anything that you wanted.
Yeah,
or you could just find the original book and write over it.
Mm-hmm. Like that kind of. I mean, things are, obviously different today. You can't necessarily get away with that same type of shit. But back then, there was absolutely nothing stopping a state society like fucking Rome from just changing history and getting away with it.
Well, it was pretty easy to do before the printing press, because in order to have any sort of copy of a paper of anything, you had to physically write out the entire thing a second time, which nobody wanted to fucking do. That's why, like, what's that pretty famous case? I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's decently famous on the internet. Some ancient Greek mathematician, like way back, basically wrote the fundamentals of, I believe it was calculus, like almost 1,000 years before it actually came to be in later on in like medieval or Renaissance Europe. He wrote the fundamentals of calculus, and then his book kind of went unnoticed, and then in medieval times an Orthodox priest took the book and bleached the papers so he could transcribe the Bible onto it and write over it, basically. But like, you could just do that with any book back then.
Yes.
And all the shit that, like could just be like lost to history because somebody bleached over it and it was the only copy of this one writing, and then you could just write whatever the fuck you wanted over it.
Yeah. Makes it think, like, even though like obviously compared to the day there was way less people who were literate, but even then, like, there still had to have been enough literate people on Earth that if you wanted to read one particular book, it must have been a pain in the ass, like being on that wait list, considering there had to have been only like maybe like one or two of that book floating around.
Unless it's the fucking Bible.
Yeah, unless it was the Bible. But like, if we were talking, like, I guess let's assume that. Let's go back before the New Testament was written. So all you had was just like what the Torah. And let's assume that you weren't like Jewish, and you wanted to fucking read. Like, if someone had this one book and you wanted to read it, it's like tough shit.
Yeah, you better be of noble blood, because no one's gonna let you see this book to begin with.
Like
You're gonna have to travel across the world if you want to read a specific thing too, because it might just be in one library.
yeah, and like your next best thing would have to be like finding people that know of the book, and maybe having them write like what they remember, and then that starts getting circulated. It's like a horrible, like ancient version of telephone. By the end, you're just gonna have this horrible chimera of information that's probably like nowhere near close to the original. Must have been pretty funny back then.
You ever thought about what were you gonna say?
You go ahead.
I was gonna say, just have you ever thought about how much general information about how civilizations and how humans are have been lost because of shit like that?
Yeah, I've thought about that.
Like, something that I've thought about kind of a decent amount, and I think we've mentioned it here on the podcast before when we talked about the Roman graffiti and how people really haven't changed.
Yes.
Like, people were drawing dicks back then, and people still draw dicks because they think it's funny. But just stuff like that, like how, you know, back then the only people who really were writing shit down were like aristocrats and the clergy, because you had to be wealthy in order to have an education and have the ability to write, like learn how to write and read. So none of the peasant folk were ever writing shit down, and even if they could write it down, they really didn't have a reason to, because they didn't have any reason to believe that people in the future wouldn't think of them in the same way or wouldn't know how they lived.
Yes.
So the only people who are writing shit down about how people lived are noblemen and the clergy, and both of them have an agenda to promote their people in a certain way, especially if this is in, say, Western Europe. Because Western Europe, you have to kiss ass to the Pope in medieval society. Like, he's gonna send you money and shit and give you his blessings and make you a legitimate ruler. So if you are writing down about how your people are so pious and they follow all of God's law and shit, and then you send it to the Pope, he gives you money for it.
Yes.
So that's why we often have this view of medieval peoples as being like super devout and conservative and all this shit. But in the very few records that exist from actual just regular people who are writing about it, they're pretty much as fucking like living in debauchery as we do today. And not much has changed. Like, whorehouses were pretty damn common in Western Europe. People were just fucking all the time. All that type of shit. Really the best one to read in terms of like the amount of information you can get from it, even though it's not really a true story as far as I know, is the Canterbury Tales, which I don't know if you've ever read that.
No.
It's basically just a story, because in ancient or in medieval England, the town of Canterbury is considered like a holy site for Christians and shit. So people in England, they didn't have to go all the way to Rome, they just go to Canterbury. And the Canterbury Tales is just is a story of a group of pilgrims going to Canterbury. But as they're traveling together, they tell stories about their lives, and each one of them is coming from like a different cut of society. And pretty much all the peasants, they all just talk about like partying and shit like that, and just doing stupid shit. Basically the same way people would talk today about how they live their life.
Yes.
And, like, not much has really changed in how humans are. It's just our perception of the past is warped. Because the only people who wrote about it are people
the ones
who
that
had
had
an agenda. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, to keep
That's my rant over.
And to keep referencing, how stuff applies to the modern day, it'd basically be like if 1,000 years from now, let's assume that just like all of the, like everything available from the common man just disappeared off the face of the earth, and all you had left was like government documents and like whatever shit they said. It'd be the exact same way, where you'd go 1,000 years in the future, and you'd just be listening to like that government double speak, where they just kind of just say nothing for like 30 seconds, and that's the equivalent of like back then, where they would speak all elegant and know the exact thing to say. It's not like like you said, the common people that talk like us. They they had a reason to sound uplifted and civilized as the state.
It'd be like if the only record you had of, like, say, I don't know, like Pennsylvania was, like, one of the presidential candidates going to give a speech there.
Yes.
And just be like, oh, we love the people of Pennsylvania. They're so good. They're hard workers, and they love to work. Like, we love you. Again, that's all you had, was just a politician saying that, like, they're good people and hard workers and devout or whatever.
And I guess speaking of graffiti and, like, the common man, look at ancient Greece, which is supposed to be considered one of the most, like, cultured places,
most enlightened.
Yeah, like enlightened
societies.
And I remember seeing, like, a while ago, there was this, like, famous ancient Greek graffiti that was in Egypt from tourists, like ancient Greek tourists that went there, and it said something really stupid like, I like the sarcophagus, but I can't understand any of the hieroglyphs.
Yeah, I think I saw that recently. That was a pretty recent thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
It's like, not only is this dickhead just, like, writing up his fucking... He's writing up, like, his Groupon, like, review. But, he's got to say some stupid shit like that.
I can't understand the hieroglyphs.
Yeah, like, I came to a foreign country and I'm gonna, like, desecrate the wall by saying I can't understand them. Crazy, this, like, people talk like that. Like, who would have thought that not much has changed and most of these people have independently, have casual ways of interacting with the world like we do.
I think one of my favorites is,
uplifted.
There was, I think in Pompeii, there was these writings on a wall between two people who just hated each other. And they would just write on this wall and, like, leave messages for each other. It's basically an ancient form of like, those, what do they call it? Fuck. Like, those soy fights, or the soy duels.
Like a jack-off.
Yeah, like a jack-off. Like, they would just leave messages for each other, like, oh, like, I was here and I fucked your mom. And then, like, the guy would show up a week later and, like, write his response to it. And there's just this whole cataloged fight between these two guys. Just talking shit to each other. Or my other favorite one, I think it was from ancient Greece. You'll probably know what I'm talking about. That one rock that says, like...
The Rock of Bybon?
Yeah, like, Bybon was able to lift this over his head with one hand.
Yes, and it was like 400 pounds.
Yeah.
Just something that is so incredibly stupid that you can't help but think that that's got to be true.
Yeah. That really is, like, the ancient form of, like, a Facebook or, like, a Twitter post. Like, people will just post the most random shit. They'll, like, take pictures of themselves to commemorate something that they did. And then here they didn't have that ability back then, so they just wrote on the rock, like, I lifted this above my head with one hand.
Yeah, I mean, there was, like, obviously there's always been this social need, no matter what time period you had, I mean, as long as you had, actual, like, civilization, that people just want to share that kind of stuff with others. And without... like, the internet, yeah, like, without, a global presence with the internet, you have to get creative. So it's either you just wrote shit somewhere, and it was most likely chiseled, so it's not like you could just, clean that away. Like, it's not like the municipality can fucking clean away graffiti. Like, you chiseled that onto a limestone wall, that shit ain't going away. Or you got, like, wax done of your face to, like, save a particular moment, like, if you died or something. Like, that's how a decent amount of, like, statues were made. Like, after the passing of, like, important figures, they had wax molds made of their faces, and they would follow that up and, make, like, huge golden statues of them. And sometimes they would just straight up keep the wax molds of their face to, like, commemorate loved ones. And that's something I didn't even know about until recently.
Put it over their heads and pretend to be them.
Yeah.
Show up at the party, like, hey guys, I'm back.
Put on, like, the macabre ass, like, wax face of, like, your dead father. Like, hey, I'm sure if you showed them how to, work fucking Snapchat, these people wouldn't waste too much time like using it.
Probably not. You'd have to
Probably
teach them
not.
how to use a smartphone first, though.
Hey, give
You
them
really
like
had to get them over the culture shock of living in the modern world.
yeah, give them like 15 minutes. Let's say like some guy 1,000 years from the future like came to you specifically, and he gave he just talked to you in the most casual way. He's like, listen, I'm from the future. I can prove it. Here's like a crazy ass like device that I would say is probably the closest like to your smartphone there. It gives you like a quick crash course. Like you'd like want to use it.
Yeah.
It's no different than that guy. Go back in time, like that stupid joke of like giving a fucking like a warhead to like a medieval peasant. And I mean the candy here, not like the weapon.
They were talking about giving them like a bomb. The
I
one
mean,
that
that'd
they
be
have to
funny.
mount to an ICBM. You're not giving them the ICBM though. You're just giving them the warhead.
I mean that'd also be really funny.
I think if you gave someone from like those times just a straight up bomb, they probably wouldn't know what it is.
I mean it depends
If
how
you give
far
them
back
a
you go.
modern day bomb, they wouldn't know that it's an explosive.
No, I mean you'd have to go far back enough to where like gunpowder explosives are actually like common enough to know about, and at least from that point on, you'd be able to give them a basic idea of what it is.
Yeah, I guess if you went back to when they had gunpowder, they might have the thought to like put the bomb into a cannon or something. They're thinking it's a big cannonball. I'm talking about like an airdrop, like a plane dropped bomb.
They would have quite the mistake, like trying to fire that. I mean, they'd certainly see like how powerful it is if they attempted it.
Yeah. Whoever's left would see how powerful it is.
Just getting the fuck with like medieval people. Maybe that'll be like the new craze of the future. If there's ever some insane way to achieve time travel in a way that like doesn't fuck with our past, because maybe just like fucks with like alternate realities past.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Like, you better hope that it's one of those time travel scenarios where it just splits off into a different timeline and doesn't affect our world.
Yeah.
Because our world's gonna be so fucked.
Because it would probably just be there'd be a whole new craze where you just purposely fuck with people from ancient eras. Just knowing that there's like nothing they can do about it.
Going back to that warhead scenario, do you think if you went back 20,000 years ago and just gave a random tribal human a warhead, do you think he'd try to kill you? He puts it in his mouth. He's probably gonna spit it out,
Okay, so now we're
and
talking.
he's
Now we're
probably
back to
gonna
the
think
candy.
that you're trying to like poison him, and like
Okay.
try to kill you for it.
Now, this would like we'd be going back so far that like each individual
20,000 years.
tribe, like we'd be going back far enough that I feel like each individual tribe would be like they would have. I would imagine that they would have like very diverse cultures, and it might be difficult to try to explain to them that this is a food, like without maybe scaring them or getting them angry. It's like where you
The
have those.
easiest way would definitely be to like have two in your hand, take one, put it in your mouth in front of them.
Now you say that, but you also got to remember that there's like those weird ass cultures where like they consider something tasting good, like to show that you like hit your head with your fist.
Mm-hmm. But if you put it in your mouth, you're showing them that it's edible. Because you're human, they're gonna recognize that you're human, and then you ate it and you didn't drop dead on the spot.
I think we'd have to determine like what what people these are. Like if these are.
Are you talking about right now? You're talking about those uncontacted tribes in Papua New Guinea. I know exactly what video you're talking about.
Yeah, like something like
them-
that. But
like
but something
Like
like that
hitting
could
their head
happen.
to show that it tastes good.
Like it all depends on like what particular like tribe you ended up in contact with. They might see you, wearing like this like regular clothes, with a clean cut hairstyle. You just look so far different from like what they are that they might consider you some kind of like evil spirit or like some kind of like evil god that's there to harm them.
Well, then just do what that guy in Papua New Guinea did, like fall on your ass in front of them.
But now you just gotta hope that like that also wasn't in their like oral tradition, where like an angry god would like fall on his rear and then like blow them up with lightning. Like, you really gotta you're really walking on eggshells here.
I'm assuming you know what documentary I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Where the guy shows himself, the white guy shows himself to a group of natives in Papua New Guinea, and they look at him and they think he's like some sort of spirit, and he's kind of trying to like beckon them over, and they're all like really cautious, and then in his movements he slips on the rock that he's standing on and falls on his ass and busts ass in front of them. And like in the interviews that they had with them afterwards, because they had interpreters with them, they just flat out say that, like, yeah, like, we thought you were an angry spirit at first, and then when you fell on your ass, like, a spirit wouldn't fall on its ass. So
Weren't they like uncontacted? Had they had an interpreter?
they were considered well, it's a really weird situation where like they were getting supplies, they were getting like aid, like international aid for a pretty long while. And that guy, because that video is titled like the first time this tribe's seen a European or something like that. But in reality, there had been Europeans on there, but it's been like almost 100 years since there were Europeans on there when that guy went there.
So it's like an old wives' tale to them.
Yeah, like when they're talking to like one of the adults from the tribe, he pretty much says like my grandfather told stories about seeing like white men, but like we all just thought he was crazy.
Just like funny to me, like hearing the words uncontacted tribe and then like immediately
interpreter.
having an interpreter.
Yeah, because like they did like missions to like give them like medicine and food and shit like that.
Just like, who is this magic man on your expedition?
He's got a magic earworm. Lets him understand anyone.
Like, that guy's more impressive than the fucking tribe at that point. Like the whole documentary about him.
I think the only other thing I do when time traveling, instead of like going back to a caveman, giving them a warhead just to fuck with them, I'd probably go back and like just bring with me just like Popeyes, like just fried chicken, and just see the look on their face when they bite into it, because you know that's gonna be the best shit that they ever tasted in their whole life, and will ever taste in their whole life.
Maybe.
You're just seeing like their eyes light up when they take that bite. I'd pay good money for that.
And just hand them like a slice of like pizza.
Yeah.
They'd go fucking nuts. Like,
You think they get mad over spicy food?
That'd probably be like a regional thing. Like, some might. You know, it'd be like if you like went over to like China, like fucking, I don't know, like 9,000 years ago, and you gave them like a piece of cheese. Like, that's gonna be the first time they ever lay eyes on that.
Yeah, they're gonna eat it immediately. They're gonna get upset stomach, and they're gonna kill you for it.
Now when they're keeled over, like, you know, grabbing their stomach.
And shitting all over the place.
Yeah, I'm already back in the time machine, planning my next lick. It's like, what's the most damage? Like, what's like maybe like the most damage? Like, what's like the funniest thing you could do? Like, with that time machine power. Like what era would bring about the most laughs, and like what object would you bring to like exacerbate that?
Well, I definitely still have to go with cavemen, because you know that they're just gonna do some dumb shit.
It just has to happen. Like, if you're a caveman, you just you just like automatically, you're just the subject of ridicule.
Yeah, like you're gonna have like a more visceral reaction to anything. But that being said, when we talk about cavemen here, like I feel like if you went back 20,000 years, because like human tribes would have had their own culture and like societies and social norms, so maybe they would act a little bit more like us than we think. But if you really wanted that, like that monkey man, caveman, like you had to go back
200,000 years or something.
200, like humans existed 200,000 years ago.
Well, how
really
monkey do you want to go?
That's the question that I was about to ask. Like, do you want to go Homo erectus like 6 million years ago? Or not 6 million, 2 million years ago. 6 million years ago is when we split from chimpanzees. I got that mixed up. 2 million years ago, Homo erectus.
Our problem is, like, we have no idea how aggressive these things would be. Like, seeing a human. Like, we really don't know how aggressive they were to each other. Like, outside of like some cases where we think they like ate their children's brains or something. Like, who the fuck knows? Like, would they even, like, humor you to, like, let you do your shtick before they try to attack you?
Well, they probably look at you and just think you're a weird-looking human, or a weird-looking one of them, right?
Or they might think you're
Because
very
Homo
attractive.
erectus, that is also a possibility. Because Homo erectus walked upright, we know that for sure. And there's a very high possibility that they were the first to use fire. And there's a very high possibility that they were also hairless. It's really unknown if they started out with hair or if they started out without hair. But it is very well thought that they at some point lost their hair.
I mean,
So they look decently human. They just have a very big brow, like even more pronounced than you would normally expect of a caveman.
yeah, they'd probably be... I'd imagine they'd probably just act like bigger children, in a sense. Kind of like how, you know, most, like, intelligent animals besides human on Earth are kind of just, like, as smart as, like, a 6-year-old or something.
I'd say they'd be a little bit smarter because they, once again, it's believed that they were the first to actually, like, start using fire and, like, purposefully making fire. And they definitely were tool users, like building spears and shit like that.
That's true. But, okay, so I'll put them, like, well, how smart do you think that would, like, go up to? Like, maybe as smart as, like, a 12-year-old?
I guess. If you
I mean,
wanna...
I'd say that's
I was
probably
gonna
a
say
fair...
10-year-old.
I'd say
that
10
would
to...
be a little bit on the lower end.
I'd say 10 to 12 is a fair estimation. And as long as that's how you, like, treat it, you could probably get away with passing on that sour candy and, like, really fucking their day up.
You know, a very angry monkey man in front of you.
I mean, I think the whole thing to sell is that you like, go over to them, you approach them cautiously. Maybe, like, I don't even know, like, what would be... like, like, you know, I think we already joked before about, like, the universal sign of choking. But, like, what would be, like, the universal sign for, like peace? Just, like, having your hands up and, like, approaching them slowly.
Just have a very modern interpretation. You put your index and your middle finger up. Like, expect them to know what you're doing.
I'm putting up the peace sign.
Yeah.
I walk over with this, like, stupid purple fucking piece of candy in between my fingers, and I show it to them. I bring it around in, like, a big circular fashion. They're scared. They're kind of, like, hooting and hollering a little bit. I put it in my mouth and I completely poker face, like the fucking sourness, and then I hand it to them. You know, and he slowly grabs it, inspects it, licks it, and then he just throws it. Like, the second that he touches its tongue, he'd probably throw it. By that point, I'd probably already gotten my laughs, and I'm, like, already out of there. Like, you know, there's, like, I would have to, like, keep the phone hidden in, like, my pocket or something, because, you know, that would distract them.
What if you hand him one of those, like, shit-flavored jelly beans?
Aw, dude. Because, like, that would be bad, because you have to, like, bite into it to find out.
Yeah.
Like, I eat, like, the regular, like, jelly bean.
Yeah,
I give him, like,
the barf one.
He gets the barf one, takes one bite, and he'd start, like, yelling. Like, if you ever like, I would just imagine, like, those noises, like, chimps make when they're, like, at full scream. Except, like, deeper.
Yeah. And you know, like, I mean, we've both had them, and you know that flavor stays in your mouth for a long time after you have that jelly. Even if you just take one bite, that flavor does not go away very quickly.
Honestly, I think the funnier thing to imagine would be the ramifications after you left. Like, for that, like, little, like, family.
They're gonna tell stories of this strange, white-skinned, like, Homo erectus that had a much bigger head, that walked a little bit better than all the other ones. He had, you know, longer arms, or no, shorter arms and longer legs than everyone.
And, like,
He really,
clothing.
you know, looked off, but then, yeah, he just walked over, handed me this thing, and put it in my mouth, and it tasted like shit. And then he laughed and disappeared. They're gonna think you're like some kind of god if you hand them something and then you laugh and disappear right in front of them. They're gonna pass that on as some sort of god figure in their mythos.
That is, unless, like,
came and gave them a bad omen.
But, you know, what if they're still, like, attached to their monkey side in a sense that, like, laughter is still, like, perceived as, like, a threatening gesture to them?
Yeah, like baring your teeth like that.
Yeah.
Then they're probably still gonna interpret it as like a bad omen from a god. Like, he came down, made me taste shit, then showed aggression and disappeared right before my eyes.
Stupid fucking
Like, tomorrow's hunt is not gonna go well. We need to wait.
Just keep going farther back, scaring them. Like, the whole point is just that, like, eventually, like, you just, you'd be at home, and, just, maybe, like, you do this, like, you exclusively get the one that's tied to, like, your actual history. Like, Time Machine, I'm talking about. And you do all this, and then eventually you see, like, researchers in Spain uncovered new cave painting. And it just shows, like, the family being handed the jelly bean.
He painted, like, the Warhead logo onto the cave wall.
Yeah, these simple stick figures, they really made sure to, like, write in perfect English.
Warhead.
Like the trademark. That was the takeaway. Even though all you did was just hand them the bear candy. Like, something, like, when all these people, like, all they're eating is literally just, like, like, fucking berries and just the same piece of, like, burnt meat every day. Tasting something sour would be such a rarity. And something that
But that's
sour.
the thing, like, they might immediately associate it with, like, poison.
Yeah.
Because they probably weren't eating, like, lemons every fucking day back then.
No.
Lemons might not have even existed in the way that they do today.
Yeah.
So their association of, like, sour being something that's good to taste wouldn't be there. They'd probably think that anything that's sour is dangerous to them.
Now, what if you went
That's why
back...
they'd scream at you and start, like, chasing you.
Now, let's say you went back maybe, like, when were, like, bows introduced? Like, 75,000 years ago?
I think so.
What if you went back
It might
then?
have even been closer than that.
Okay, let's say you went back to, like, the time when bows were common enough around humanity that, like, if you showed it to one of them, they would, like, understand what it is. And, like, you handed them, like, a compound bow. You think they'd get, like, scared? You think they'd see that as, like, the most futuristic weapon they could ever conceive?
They probably, yeah, they probably see it as, like, some sort of spirit or god figure, like, granting them a blessing and giving them this, like, powerful, like,
like a super
holy
bow.
Yeah, like the holy bow.
And the scary part is that they'd probably get, like, good at it.
Yeah, I mean, it works in the exact same way as a normal bow. It just shoots farther and more accurately. Like, they'd use that shit if they don't immediately turn into, like, a ceremonial thing.
Do you think?
Jesus fucking Christ, stop.
Do you think it would even be possible for people, like, to, like, reverse engineer that?
I don't think they'd be able to get the exact toolage needed to make all of, like, the
Parts.
spinning parts. Yeah, like, they'd probably try to, but it wouldn't be nearly as well manufactured because they don't have, like, laser precision.
I wonder how long.
Or screws, like.
And I wonder how long that, like, compound bow would last before, like, it finally, like, broke down and withered away. Because it's not like it's made out of fucking, it's not made out of wood and, like, sinew, like, however you pronounce that. Like, it's not gonna erode after, like, 5 years.
Yeah, but the, like, fiberglass is eventually going to lose its bounce, and the rope is gonna, get worn down over time.
But there's no way that guy's gonna throw that thing away.
Yeah.
It's gonna be covered in, like, rose petals on an altar. like, would that thing, like, make it to, like, civilization?
Probably not.
Like, maybe there'd be, like, a fragment of it in, like, a jar.
Yeah.
Like a fucking,
Or
like,
it'll be, like-
Babylonian king would have.
Yeah, like, buried with a king of, like, a tribe.
The shard of the god bow. It was just, like, this compound bow you bought at, like, Walmart.
Do you imagine if they found a tomb and they, like, excavated it and there was just a piece of fiberglass?
That would, like, uproot. Like, that would that would be fucking hidden from, like, from the news. It would uproot everything we'd know.
They open the sarcophagus of an ancient Scythian king in the steppes of Eurasia, and he just has a fully maintained compound bow with fiberglass steel-tipped arrows.
It's got a copyright year of like 2023.
Yeah.
So that would be like the biggest cover-up.
There's no way that they would ever release it. That's why Putin's trying to like revive those Scythians.
Yeah, he's like trying to get like the Scythian like clone army.
Yeah.
But what do you think? Like maybe like something slightly more interesting is that what do you think the government response would be? They would have to know like once like the channels like communicate with each other, I think it would dawn on them pretty quick that like time travel is real and exists in their timeline. Like what would they do? Like what could they do?
Nothing. They just have to hide it from the public.
Like there'd have to be some kind of like task force that would be devised to try to like hunt down
Any sort of abnormalities.
Yeah, they like how would they find like because like they would be able to narrow it down to a degree. Like maybe they would scour like the records of everybody who bought a compound bow within like a certain time frame. They'd find out who had that thing stocked. Like
Yeah, they try to find like the serial number on the bow to find out who bought it.
Because if this shit happened, like
They're
everybody
gonna try to track that guy down.
Yeah, and not only that, but like they would not care about like rivalries. Like they would probably get every fucking government on board to like put their resources together to figure this out.
Find this mystery man.
Yeah. But they can't find him because he's too busy like fucking with cavemen.
Now, but what if the copyright symbol is like super far in the future? Like 2150 or something like that. Like, do you think that they would hide that serial number to try to like and just keep it on the back burner? So that like 150 years in the future they could find the guy?
Maybe. They'd put it in like an archive somewhere. Like leave it up to like a future generation to solve. I don't know. Like, but yeah, they would be like task force number 1 to fucking find this dickhead who's just tampering with the past in like funny ways.
And what if it was just only one sarcophagus that had it too? Like they never found anything else. It was just this one thing. Do you think they still go after him?
They would have to. It's literally proof
That time travel exists?
that is, unless they were so flabbergasted that like they couldn't accept anything else other than that.
Someone had like gone there before them.
Yeah, there was like a hoax made by like a grave robber, and like the carbon dating was just like wrong. But I feel like there would still have to be like some kind of task force. I don't know like how like insane that process is. I don't know if there's a way to like guarantee like without any shadow of a doubt that this thing would be that old. But like if that was the case, they would like get the resources to just like figure this shit out. They would not just like like leave that. The Scythian compound bow. Yeah, like really the farthest you can go is like maybe handing like someone from that era like a crossbow or something. Once you started handing like guns, I think it would be like a little too frightening.
Yeah. They'd shoot it and they'd like probably drop it and run away as soon as they heard it. They wouldn't have like the ability to really perceive like the bullet even got fired.
No, they would have no idea what's happening. They just think it just makes loud noises.
Like it makes a loud noise and your hand hurts. So drop it and run away from it.
You'd have to show them that. You have to have them
demonstrate.
You demonstrate it on somebody, which would already mean that
just walk up and shoot one of the members of the tribe in front of them.
I mean, that would sure as hell scare the hell out of them. I don't know if any of them would have it in them to like try to attack you after witnessing that. Like a deafening sound of thunder, like a blinding flash of light, and then the guy in front of you was just like spewing blood out his chest. You can't even consider what that was. Like that, for all you know, that man just struck you down with lightning.
Yeah.
you are not going to fight this guy.
Go back in time just to become an ancient god king.
Oh yeah, and I would say maybe the best way to do that is you go back in time with one of those like low frequency like crowd control vehicles.
Ooh, that's fucking dirty.
You just turn that on, and now every single person's like body starts heating up, and like they
all feel sick, and they can't like do anything about it.
Now that is like some shit that like a God story would be written for, undoubtedly.
That is fucking filthy. Now, would you bring like the helicopter with you?
I mean,
like, do it with
the helicopter would be too loud. Like you'd have to bring in like one of the cars that has it mounted.
just the fact that you have a car would be like enough for them. Like you probably wouldn't need the fucking thing.
That's true, but at least you can like cover it with like a tarp or something, or like, you know, hide it somewhere where like it wouldn't be able to make noise. A helicopter, like, you'd hear that, and that would probably
like
scare them even more than like activating the fucking weapon. So
you're saying like you have like the car hidden, and like you walk up to them and then like deploy it? Hey, you're gonna be like in the blast zone.
I get behind it. I just like open the door and get in. I mean, as long as the car isn't like moving around too much, like they aren't gonna have any reason to like get too afraid of it. They're just gonna see it as like this bizarre structure, and then then it hits them. Well, not the car. That'd be really funny.
Yeah, how do you think cavemen would react if they saw you run down one of the members of the tribe in a fucking truck?
Like, can you imagine if you just like if you went like 1,000 years ago, like you went like maybe like 2,000 years ago, and you brought like a fucking you brought like a Ford back truck, and you started running down people on like the Silk Road. I'm going 90, just like hitting people. They would have no idea. Like just bringing out this heavy machinery with only the purpose of scaring people to death. Like I want to bring in like the fucking like the X-Valkyrie, like that that jet strategic bomber from like the 70s or whatever. It was like the fastest plane like ever at the time, and just fly that over like Rome, like full throttle.
But like, are you taking it like way high up in the atmosphere like it was intended, or are you gonna do like a low pass over?
It's like a low pass. Fucking Zeus has forsaken them.
Yeah. I'd find like an ancient like just starting to farm society, and I'd install just like a full-blown train whistle right next to like town. Just randomly start blaring it throughout the day. They'd have no idea what the fuck's going on.
They have nightmares. Like, you suddenly just play like a nuclear warning siren. Like you have one installed and just turn it on.
Oh man, do you think they would react to it like that though?
Well,
obviously today we have the modern interpretation, and
yes,
we
know
do. Like what that sound means. That's why like we have that feeling of dread when we hear it. But they wouldn't know what a nuke siren is. They'd hear this ominous thing, but would it be ominous to them? It's ominous to us.
I think it would be ominous, because not only is it loud as shit, and like that would definitely be louder than anything they've ever really heard, but also the sound was invented specifically to like scare people. So I think it would have a pretty good reaction. But I think the dirtiest thing you could do would be if you had like a Predator drone, and like you flew it over like like Mesopotamia, and every now and then you would just deploy one of those fucking like
Obama. Bring in the fucking drone in the Middle East. Who do you think you're fooling?
But here's phase 2. You use one of those really specific like anti-personnel like razor blade bombs that they use to like specifically kill like Soleimani in Iran. The ones that like they don't kill anyone else. It hits you specifically because it just shoots like 10 razor blades that go right into your body. Like it's just like sheer kinetic impact of like a bladed weapon from that height. It's just like hitting people with that. Like you would not be able to you would not like walk outside anymore. Just instant death from the sky.
They probably weren't to recognize when like the drone is out.
How? That would be too high to see.
They might be able to hear it.
Like a Predator drone?
I don't know. I don't know what it sounds like. Aren't those things propeller driven?
Yeah, but they're like tiny propellers, and those things fly high enough that like you wouldn't really know if they were like out. Like if they were like high enough, like you would have no fucking clue. And now just anytime you walk outside, you're just eviscerated.
Killing ancestors for fun.
Well, you know, this is the alternate universe, so I don't have to feel bad about it. I'm fucking over someone else's reality. It's like knowing that these people have no defense. Like, what would they do? Like, what would be their reaction? Would they like just attempt to install like ballistas or something?
But how far back are you going?
I don't know. I mean, the farther back, the funnier. But I'd say, you know, it's gotta be far back enough that there's at least like a state society to fuck with.
That was my other thought real quick, is what if you just what if you flew just a plane over and dropped like a single bomb into Rome? What do you think their reaction would be when they heard like the whistle of the bomb falling?
I mean, they would probably be standing there looking up. Like, they wouldn't know to run. They would all be in like awe of this noise looking up until it hit. Like, I don't think any of them would run at all. They would just stand there waiting.
What if you had a timer on the bomb? Like one of those time detonations. Like you give them like 30 seconds. Do you think when they hit the ground that like they would run from it, or do you think they'd start like gathering around to, like see what it is?
I mean, I think like they would initially run, but then they would definitely come back to see what it was, because their first instinct is that they'd probably think it was like a meteor or something. Because, you know, obviously, like, you know, enough of that has to have happened in like the ancient world that like they'd probably like heard stories about like, you know, rocks falling from the sky. And like they want to see it for themselves. You know, they've heard the tales, and they see this thing, and they see like a blinking red LED on the side, like it's from a fucking cartoon. And they're just like wondering like, what the hell's going on? And you just maximize the kill because like everybody in town gathered around this singular bomb. And I'll tell you, like, that explosion, like nobody in ancient world would see an explosion.
Yeah. No fire, but they'd never see a fucking mushroom cloud before.
Like, that's all you'd hear. Like 20 years later, you know, word would reach like the farthest edges of Europe, like maybe start getting into Asia, about how Rome was attacked by the gods. They'd forsaken their gods and were struck dead.
Now, here's a good one. What if you took a caveman and then like brought them forward in time to see like the test detonations of the Manhattan Project? You gave them like the glasses and everything and showed them that.
They bring this caveman, like I took him away from his family in the night and bring him right to Sarajevo.
Yeah. And you got him like in like the observation deck. And he's like got the glasses on and
like,
shit.
Like we don't even like break him into the time period. Like we just straight up, like,
you just
raw
straight up
dog
show
there.
him. Yeah, you just bring him right to the detonation and show him it.
That is rough. Although if he saw that many like people with him, I don't know like what he'd do, because obviously like nowadays like there's like an expectation that he would just start like, you know, jumping around, smashing everything like a fucking gorilla. But I think he'd be more frightened to do anything.
He'd definitely be scared because he'd be seeing all this shit that like he's not gonna have the, because like I'm talking like I don't know 30,000 years ago or something.
Yes.
Tribal human. It's still a
Homo
human.
sapien. Yes.
It's still a human. So he's not a fucking complete wild animal. He's not just gonna start breaking shit.
Yeah.
He's gonna see all these like these blinking lights and these like dials that are like moving on their own and all these metal constructions. The shit he's never seen before. He's gonna be scared out of his fucking mind. And he's gonna be seeing all like these like men wearing these weird tunics, which, you know, we would recognize as suits.
And I mean, he'd probably be fully dressed in like maybe like bear fur clothing. Like to be honest, he might like have a hat, shoes, pants, and like a jacket. Like at that age, so like he'd understand that we are clothed humans. We're just outside the scope of anything he's ever seen. Like he may not even like get like completely terrified, but he might just be in like awe.
he's only gonna be like, what the fuck are these guys? Like, what are they gonna do to me?
Oh.
What is all this shit around me? Like, it's not wood and it's not dirt and it's not rocks. Like, what is this? Why are there lights? Like, what are these blinking lights in front of me? Why are these things moving on their own? But then, like, you hand him the glasses. You're gonna like gesture for him to put it on his face, and eventually he's gonna like figure it out and put it on his face. And then you bring him to like
Walk
the
him
observation window.
And they give the order, push the button, and then like Oppenheimer like holds his hand.
Oppenheimer holds his hand. Oppenheimer gives him a kiss on the cheek.
He like holds his hand tightly, and the bomb goes off, and this caveman's like, oh. And like a single
And then
tear
the
rolls down his eye.
He sees the explosion, and then like he sees the cloud after like the light dims down. But then like once that sound wave hits, he's gonna fucking shit his pants.
He'd just be screaming on the ground, like pointing. And like everyone else in the room just like laughing at him.
Yeah. Completely have lost interest in the atomic explosion. They're all looking at the cavemen and laughing.
Okay, I got something that might be a little bit funnier. Same type of situation, but you dress him up in like an army GI uniform and you put him in those trenches with the guys who had to like walk into like the bomb blast.
Fucking asshole. Do you give him a gun? Does he get a gun like the other ones?
He does
That's
get
fucking dangerous.
He does get like an M1 carbine, and they put him in there. And the thing is, he has no idea what's going on. All the GIs have been instructed not to interact with him at all if they can help it. So all he has to go off of is like peer pressure. He like looks down, he sees that he's wearing what they're wearing, so maybe in his mind he'll think like maybe they're in the same situation I am.
They've inducted me, or
Yeah.
maybe he might be like they've inducted me into their society here.
Yeah, maybe it's best if I like if I follow along. And then like the second the bomb goes off, like he's the only one scared because he like all of them like knew what was gonna happen. He didn't, but like he doesn't want to look like a pussy in front of everyone else because like he's the only one that's afraid.
And then he sees all of them start jumping over, going into no man's land. What if he just dropped a caveman into World War One?
Would he live? Dude, like those were people that knew about like modern weaponry and they got shell shocked. Like these were people like, you know, when they saw like they lived to see like industrial vehicles like come about, and when they saw planes and tanks, they just couldn't even understand what was going on. When this caveman hears the shelling, I think he's gonna faint.
He even has time to like get into the foxhole. He's probably not gonna realize what's happening when they like start blowing the whistle and like take cover.
Like, no one
He's
he
gonna be
doesn't
standing
understand
there.
their
He's gonna
language.
be standing there with his head clear above the trench, like looking around.
Oh man.
Like, what would he think if, like, say, like, he wasn't a part of, like, the wave? So, like, he just sees a bunch of men get up, jump up over the trench, they run out into no man's land, and then he just hears a bunch of, like just repeated, like, thunder strikes, and just watches as, like, one by one, they just start falling and dropping dead.
I don't even
What's he
think
gonna think
Dude,
seeing that?
He would not be in a position to be like watching. If like that was
That is
happening,
true,
the
but
ground would be shaking. There'd be sounds louder than he could have ever imagined, literally deafening his vision. He'd be like curled up in a fetal position in the trench.
Hold on. What do you think his reaction would be if he saw a Zeppelin?
Dude. He would get on his knees and just start like crying. I want to place him in like London during like the Zeppelin raids.
Yeah.
All of these alarms start blaring. These massive machines fly out of the clouds in the cover of dark, and
And then
bombs erupt
they just
around
start
them.
dropping things that hit the ground and blow up. He's never even seen an explosion before.
He hasn't
He's
seen
never-
anything here before. Because like the sad part is that like it would like if something like this were to happen to us, it would have to be so far detached for us to like even have the same like effect on us. Like it would have to be stuff that we can't even like come up with. Because even if we were to assume like maybe like I don't know like 100,000 years in the future, we were just like brought into some war for the sake of like some guy getting a laugh out of it. Like we understand a lot of shit. So like what else could be done that would really
Get like that reaction.
get
out of
that
us.
same reaction out of
The
us?
only thing like I could think of is if they just have technology in the future where they can just beam the emotion of fear directly into your head, because like our forms of sci-fi are so out there and there's so much shit that like our idea of what anything could be is already there.
Yeah.
Like if we got transported into this futuristic world and we started seeing shit, like we'd probably be able to link pretty easily that like this is man-made or that it's some technological thing that we just don't understand the technology behind it. So I don't think you'd really get that same sense of fear unless they could just straight up mind control you into experiencing that form of fear.
Like it'd have to be something so insane that I don't know, like maybe like you get brought into this war and like nobody even fights with like real weapons anymore. Just like the enemy side is just able to project visions into you where you experience like every horror that's ever happened in human history all within like one span of a second. And you just have to like live with that now. You're completely debilitated, just like you are
shell shocked. You're curled in the fetal position on the floor.
like you've literally seen like they had some kind of weapon that compiled the worst things imaginable. Like they broke the human psyche like cracking a computer code. They knew exactly what to show you to make your mind break. And they have that all flash at you in like a fraction of a second. Your brain just like explodes.
Like future warfare isn't about teaching humans like tactics and how to use weapons and organizing and all that shit. It's just about building up a mental fortitude so that way your mind doesn't melt the second they beam this thing at you.
Put the caveman at Omaha Beach. I want to put him in the fucking transport ship heading to Normandy.
Dude, like all the other soldiers are sitting there calm, they're all nervous deep down, but they're just sitting there motionless. And then meanwhile there's this caveman who's like hopping like up and down, like looking all over the place.
It's cause
Like he kind of like whimpering, like
because this time is even more fucked because like this is the first time he's probably ever been like on
In the water?
Yeah, in the water on a boat, and it's like rocking, and he's probably throwing up all over everybody. And then he just approaches. People are
he's just
shouting.
surrounded by all these men. They all have the same get up. They're wearing the same clothes. They have the same hairstyle. They all just have this somber expression on their face. Like they kind of know what they're getting into. And it's just silence and like this mood all over this boat. And then there's this one caveman who's like looking around. He's throwing up. He's like running up and down. He's poking his head up to like see where they are.
Do you think he would just like look at his gun and just like drop it? Or do you think he would like hold it because like everyone else is holding theirs?
He'd probably like hold it like really tiny. Wouldn't have his hand anywhere near the trigger because he wouldn't make that mental link.
Like, too afraid to touch anything else on the gun.
And then once like the German artillery starts like firing at the boats coming, that's when the shit's really gonna hit the fan for the caveman.
He'd like try to jump out and he just like hits water.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to swim.
So if he was like lucky enough to actually be able to walk onto shore from there, dude, he would just I think he would just lay in the sand, like hand over his ears until like it ended.
What would his reaction be when the doors open and like the machine gun fire starts coming into the boat?
It's like it's either you just scream and die, or you
would
like
he-
turn around
yeah.
and start running.
Would he scream and like get shot, or would he scream in the back of the boat, like huddled into the corner, like crying, or would he like start running with the other soldiers out of the boat?
I don't know. Like it all come down to like how strong is peer pressure. I mean, it had to be pretty strong because like obviously, like none of those people on the boat, like I mean, they kind of know what they're getting into. Like not 100%, but at least they have like a fair idea of what's going to happen.
Well,
when
they
that
know
door
what
opens.
modern war is.
Yeah, I'm sure they like not many of them knew the extent of like how fucked that day was gonna be, but like they knew to a degree what was going to happen when that door opened. But like even though they were scared shitless and like knew like there was a damn good chance they're gonna die, they still all ran with each other because like the peer pressure, there was like an in-group fucking like synergy going on, and maybe that would affect the caveman too. But I'd have to like keep running this like caveman simulation over and over until we successfully had a moment where the caveman like shot his gun. Like it's like fucking like neural training. Like eventually I want a reality where like he hits the sand, crawls up the beach, and successfully like takes the
Like
beach.
shoot someone.
Yeah. Like he deploys the Bangalore, like fucking like Saving Private Ryan, and blows up the bunker. He like grabs like a telephone off the guy's back. He's like, ooh, ooh, and then like sent it over.
Wait, yeah. Do you think if you gave like obviously like you're giving him the same getup as like the other soldiers, so do you think if he even had like the mental stability to like observe
Last that
what's
long.
happening around him, if he saw someone take the grenade like off of their waistband, pull the plunger and throw it, do you think eventually he would do the same?
Maybe. I think the problem is he wouldn't necessarily understand that like it explodes because there'd be so much happening that he wouldn't maybe like know what that grenade did, and maybe he would think like maybe he would do it. I'd say there's just about as much of a chance that he like wouldn't. Like I said, we'd still like I'd need to have him like finally just like grab his gun and just try shooting it.
I feel like he'd probably shoot one of his comrades.
Like
He'd shoot a GI before he shot a German.
it's like
Because he wouldn't know who the GIs were.
no, but at least he would like have some connection where like there'd be people like he would I doubt he even like see a German. Like
Do you
there'd be
think
like
any of the GIs would be like trying to help him? Or do you
Yeah.
think like someone would like tackle him, like get down, like tackle him so he doesn't get shot?
I think in the moment they would, I mean, who are they? Like they're in such an adrenaline rush. Are they really gonna like look at this guy and think like he's a caveman?
He's a caveman. Well,
There's-
when the one guy who's got like everyone just got off the boat, but there's just one guy that's got like dirt covering his entire body, and he's got like long unkempt hair and like a beard. He's probably gonna stand out to everyone.
I mean, he probably will stand out, but like, are you really gonna like, break rank and like start talking shit to this guy for like not being
They
like?
probably are gonna yell shit at him. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
He's like. I think it's really funny to like demasculate the fucking like caveman,
Like he's constantly whimpering.
yeah. It's like every depiction of him, just like this, like 6'5" hulking mass that just
It
The
just
sec-
kills all
yeah,
the time.
yeah. The second he sees like the future, he just smashes and kills. I think it's way funnier to like put it on like a more realistic mask.
Yeah,
here.
it's way more realistic, especially if you're bringing them right into the middle of a conflict.
It's so far detached from everything they've ever experienced in their lives.
There's definitely gonna be a level of breakdown inside of their brains.
Like
Or it's something that they could have never dreamt of happening in front of them.
I like the two of us like sitting in this monitor room like with like champagne, and we clink it together when he finally gets one confirmed kill.
Yeah. Alright, so the next one in.
And then we just like go forward, and the caveman, he's like cleanly shaved. He has like a 2,000-yard stare, being awarded the service medal. He lived.
And then he gets sent back to his original time.
Oh, dude, that'd be like so fucked up. Like he'd be going back with all that knowledge. Like it's
Gets
still
to shake hands with the president. And then he gets sent back.
And like by then, like he kind of knows how to salute. He knows a couple words in English, and like he doesn't really know what they mean. He just like repeats them because like they were important. And like he has killed 2 people. And he gets sent back wearing like his full dress uniform.
Got the Purple Heart.
With the Purple Heart, like the service award, like World War II, along with like all these other like awards on his uniform, and he just sent back with that look in his eyes. Oh,
He's got the only caveman with PTSD. He's gonna be having nightmares.
Do you
for
think he'd
decades.
kill himself? You'd probably jump off a cliff. Like that caveman would kill himself. You could not live with that. Like sure, he's no stranger to seeing like
PTSD caveman suicide.
yeah, like sure, he's no stranger to like, you know, killing animals, you know, like up and personal. He's no stranger to seeing like other humans die. But to like what he saw would have had to have disturbed him enough to have like him to have seriously considered suicide.
And depending on the age of the caveman too, like, you know, he might have killed someone because there would have been like tribal conflicts back then, fighting
Oh, yeah.
over hunting grounds and shit like that. But it all would have been like just spears. We'd have never seen someone get
Like,
a bullet
leg
into their
blown
head.
off.
Or yeah, like step on a
organs
fucking
falling out.
landmine and just get blown to bits.
It's just funny to think that they're
Even just like a shot to the head, I feel like
Yeah.
is still a lot more visceral than someone like getting stabbed by a spear.
like it's really funny to me thinking that there's like one possibility that the caveman makes it to the end of the war. Like knowing the basics of like soldiery.
Just knowing how visceral World War II was in general.
Put him in World War One when like the first gas attack hits.
He's dead.
Do you
He's
think
not
you
putting on the gas mask.
okay?
Are you kidding me?
So like he hears a whistle, and like he's looking like oh, and he sees everyone around him like they fumble into this bag on their chest, pull this thing out, put it on their face.
Dude, he doesn't know what a zipper is. He's
like,
not getting
playing
the
with
bag
zipper.
open. Like,
You'd see a caveman die from chlorine gas.
I don't think there is any reality where the caveman figures out what a gas mask is.
Like I said, we just have to keep running the simulation until we found one that did. And then we'd eventually like, put all these cavemen into like the battle royale.
The strongest survivors. Well, the gas mask one's gonna
Like-
die because he never learned how to
No.
use the gun. He just learned how to use the gas mask.
And thinking about this is kind of just like a funnier version of like what the plot of Assassin's Creed is. Like when you think about it. Taking a normal guy to live through like dangerous situations, like train him. Except we're just doing it in the funniest way imaginable.
We're doing it in reverse instead of like sending someone back to learn of like an ancient assassin technique. We're taking someone from the past and bringing them to the future to learn about modern warfare.
Just to send them back where you'll never use it. We're 1 and 2. I mean, hell, even if he sent them back to like I don't know, like the fucking Punic Wars. I mean, at least like that he would vaguely understand.
Yeah, he could understand melee combat.
Like it would be structured melee combat. Everyone would still have spears. They'd just be like more impressive than he'd ever seen before.
And yeah, they'd all be like metal. They'd have metal armor. He'd never seen metal before. Everything he knows is stone.
No, but I think he'd be able to grasp pretty easily like what it is. Like you'd
Yeah.
understand like, okay, this is like a heavy thing I wear on me. This will probably like protect me. I think if you gave him some time, he would be able to adapt and like join the ranks. You wouldn't know what the fuck anyone's saying. I don't know if you'd ever understand.
He
But
could
he'd
probably be taught. I think you could teach a caveman modern language, because who's to say that their language wouldn't be as complex?
I don't know.
Because they were still humans. They still talk to each other just
That is
like
true.
we do.
It's
It
not.
just would have been in something completely unknown to us because there's no record of it.
It would just be tricky because it's not easy to learn another language as like an adult necessarily, and like you wouldn't be fortunate enough today where you could just like, have a translation guide to like help you. Like these are two groups that don't know each other's languages. Like one hardly even has a language.
But there were those ancient Romans that like that Roman like legion or whatever that got lost and ended up like in China. Basically, that's what people believe happened to them because the Chinese texts say that people who basically looked like Romans showed up one day.
Yeah, and like the Chinese
and, like,
people in that province still claim that they're descendants of Romans.
Yeah, so like those adult Romans were able to learn Chinese back then.
Yeah,
they just settled there and started living with those people.
It's something that's just not too easy to do. Maybe he could. Maybe the caveman could do it. I don't doubt him. But
I think out of necessity he would.
Caveman starts speaking Greek. I think World War II one is still just like the funniest thing to me.
I'm just still trying to think if there's any better place to put them. I was thinking of bringing up like dropping them into the middle of the Battle of Kursk. I feel like that would be even more hectic and more likely for him to just die instantly.
Put him at the Battle of Midway.
Like a fucking plane? Is he in a plane?
That would be really funny. He is the fucking the tail gunner. No,
he's a tail gunner.
He's the floor gunner. No, he's in a
like
ball turret.
He's in the ball turret,
dude. He's in the ball turret of a P-17.
Dude, he's so fucked. Wasn't that like the most dangerous fucking position to be in the P-17?
Dude.
He's not even gonna like know how to fire the gun.
No, he's just gonna look down to the glass and see like 40,000 feet.
Yeah, and he's gonna fucking have a heart attack. Like even more than that, like unlike the other scenarios where like he can look around and if he ever has like the ability to snap out of the shell shock, he could look around and maybe pick up that like the people around him, like, oh, they have these wooden things that when they pull the trigger it fires, and that's like what's killing people. But like he's in a plane in the ball turret, completely separate from the rest of the crew. Does he have a headset?
Yes. All these people screaming at him in a language he doesn't get.
Yeah. But like he's never gonna be able to look over and see someone else fire because like, all the other planes are gonna be too far away to like recognize another human being.
Okay, I just
he's
thought of
gonna
something.
be completely useless, and eventually the enemy planes are gonna realize that this one plane's ball gunner isn't firing. They're gonna take him down.
Okay, I just thought of one thing that might be funnier than like all of this. Okay, so like, just to like a little bit of like of a preface to this particular hypothetical.
I just want to say I just thought of one too, and I think it might be able to top yours, but we'll see.
It's 1945. And a Japanese rocket suicide plane has just been launched from a catapult. At that second, the Japanese pilot is like teleported away, and the caveman's inserted. And he's now at the helm of the suicide rocket.
Well, considering that thing is piloted, it's definitely not gonna make its target.
Can you imagine this caveman going like 250 miles an hour, or like faster?
It's never gonna like redirect the course. It's just gonna keep climbing in altitude because like he's not gonna grab onto the joystick and start flying the fucking thing. Okay,
here's the silver lining. This is what I'm gonna do for the caveman. All on the inside, there's sticky notes with almost perfect depictions of him drawn on like with like fucking like drawn in pen.
Yeah, like photorealistic drawings of him.
Yeah, like interacting with the with like the fucking joystick. Yeah.
So is it like the Metal Gear Solid concept art style? Like it's that?
That'd be like a little too tricky to see. Yeah. It's basically just like he knows it's him, and it shows him like interacting with the fucking like the joystick.
Does the final one show him crashing into a boat?
Yes. How many tries? Like, how many out of 100 cavemen do you think would reach the boat?
None. Because like you have to consider too that like the Japanese pilots would have, you know, had like nationalism and like loyalty to their country to make that flight. Like, this caveman, the only thing on his mind is self-preservation. He is not going to crash this thing. Like, he's gonna at the very least be able to make that mental connection that if he crashes this thing, he's gonna die.
Okay, I got a better idea. Like, keep yours in mind for after this. Okay, so like he's in the cockpit. It hasn't launched yet. It shows him all the sticky notes, and the last one, after colliding with the boat, shows him like back with his family. He gets like 5 minutes to like parse over all these like sticky notes. You know, you like kind of like toys with the joystick a little bit, yeah, and then it launches. Do you think like 1 out of 100 would like almost make it, or at least like make it to the boat?
In that case, probably.
Like 1 confirmed caveman kamikaze bomb.
If he gets 5 minutes to like go over what's in front of him and like figure it out, and then like maybe has the incentive to like do it because it shows him getting back to his family afterwards.
What a scumbag thing to do. It's just a lie. Okay, well, what was yours?
Mine was, what if you just instantly transmissioned him in an astronaut outfit in the shuttle of Apollo 11?
Oh, dude. That'd be like too much. Like those G-forces would be like insane.
Yeah, but let's say just some miracle he can withstand it. What would be going through his head as the shuttle launches? And he's just going up.
Well, I don't really know exactly what like the cockpit situation looked like. I don't know if it was possible for him to like look out a window and see like that he was like on Earth before any of this happened. Like, I guess he would assume he's on Earth. I don't think he knows anything else but that. But, like, at least if he saw out the window and, like, saw he was inside of something and he was, like, maybe a couple 100 feet above the ground, and this thing takes off, I think you'd be able to understand, like, oh my god, I'm leaving the fucking planet.
Yeah, well, like, as, like, maybe not at first, but definitely as he starts to get higher and higher, like, he breaches the clouds, like, that's when he's gonna start to, like, realize something's wrong. I
think the big problem is that he's gonna faint, like, on the way up, because he's not, like, trained to, like, handle the G-forces. So, like, maybe, let's assume that, like, he fainted and he actually reawakened.
What's his reaction when he wakes up and he's in space? Do you think he's gonna be able to recognize that the blue sphere under, like, outside of the window is Earth? Or, like, is where he comes from?
I don't know. We have no idea.
What is going to be his reaction when he looks and he sees that, like, the moon is getting, like, within, like, jogging distance?
He would be...
He's going to recognize the moon.
Yes, he would. Then maybe, like, if he recognized the moon getting closer, then maybe be able to make the mental leap that he is, like, in between worlds. Like, he's between realms.
What if he spacewalks?
Oh, that is too much for a caveman. Everything he has ever known about how things interact with the world goes out the window. That'd be like it could be like if tomorrow, like if every action you took, like your opposite limb moved. Like that is like world changing.
Do you think he'd be able to figure out how to move in 0 Gs?
If you give anyone long enough, I feel like they could figure it out, including a caveman. Like, he would eventually stop, like, squirming and, like, see, like, what his body's doing. I would hope so, at least.
All right. Apollo, like, the crew of this spacecraft, they got a death wish. They need to make repairs. And in the same scenario
they
as,
sent
like...
him out?
Yeah, same scenario as, like, the suicide jet. Like, they have, like, the drawings of him doing the repairs. And they send him out. Do you think he does it? 1 in 100. Do you think there's a 1 in 100 chance that he pulls it off?
I'm just like, I'm like playing it out in my head. So like I would have to, okay, so this is something that you can't necessarily do alone. So someone would have to put him into like the astronaut suit. That's like a 30-minute process. So he's got to like sit still for 30 minutes while this unknown person puts him in a suit. And that's already going to scare him because he's going to like, because he might think of like being placed in the suit as like a threat. Like that might be threatening to him. He's like trapped inside of something. He might
When
not.
they lower the helmet onto him, he's gonna freak.
Yeah.
He's never been in a fully encapsulated thing. At least like a medieval knight would have some idea of what's going on, but this caveman is not gonna know.
Yeah. It's gonna be full encapsulated. He might think he's being trapped and he might start to freak out. But I guess eventually, like once he realizes like nothing's happening, like maybe he'd like sit still, he's still panicking. And then they depressurize the room and open the hatch. And then he realizes like, oh my, yeah, he floats out.
And suddenly, dude, he's gonna have like a falling. He's gonna panic because he's gonna look below, see Earth, and he's gonna think that he's like falling.
He's gonna start like shaking around violently.
Yeah, he's gonna start like waving his arms and legs.
He actually detaches the tether from his suit.
He's just lost. He's just a goner.
And just to make matters worse, like one of like the EVA parts of his suit starts like spraying. So like he's in a perpetual spinning motion, getting faster.
He's so fucking done for.
And like maybe like an hour later, they just see like this little like red mark burning up in the atmosphere. But let's assume that somehow, you know, after like he read all that, like I think there would still have to be like sticky notes that like would a caveman understand what an arrow is, like pointing somewhere to go?
Is it a caveman that lived during a time when bows and arrows existed?
I don't know. Is it?
Because I don't know. Because if it's like after
like a
the
directional
invention,
arrow.
yeah, after the invention of the bow, like an arrow pointing to something became a universal sign for any society that invented bows and arrows. So if he lived before the invention of bows and arrows, he's not gonna know what an arrow pointing to something is.
Because I feel like without that guide, there's zero way he's gonna get to where he needs to go.
But the same goes for the Japanese one, doesn't it? Like it's gonna have like the steps of instructions of like pointing to things.
But I feel like you could depict all of that without the use of an arrow.
I don't know about that.
I probably could. I can get that caveman to the fucking carrier. It's a little bit of time. Maybe after like 5 subjects, I'll get like the one winner. But okay, just for the sake of this caveman, yes, like the arrow's been invented. So I guess like the sticky notes laid out along like the rim of this thing that guides him to it. He would be learning for the first time that any help how to use these tools.
You think a caveman could figure out how to use a wrench?
I mean, there's probably some like regular ass people today who've never used a wrench in their lives and like wouldn't really know how to like use it effectively. He would struggle. He would probably do more damage than like he'd be fixing.
He'd probably be in panic mode the whole time.
Yeah.
He's gonna be once again like in that permanent like falling thought. Like he's gonna be thinking that he's falling.
Like he's just gonna be grabbing onto everything just for dear life with his eyes closed, waiting until it all goes away.
Alright, caveman in the Moonlander, but it's like the alternate timeline where they couldn't recover. So like Buzz Aldrin had to leave them stranded.
The caveman, they leave the caveman.
Yeah, it's like caveman, Neil Armstrong, and whoever the other guy was. Stuck on the moon's surface.
They leave the caveman to give the speech.
It was the president who was gonna give this speech. Why is it?
It's funnier that way.
He's gonna give the speech from the lander. Like, how's that gonna work? Or is there like there's a caveman on the moon, as a caveman on Earth, and the one on Earth has to give it? Like...
Yeah, the caveman president.
What do you think the caveman would do though, on the abandoned Moonlander?
I think he'd probably start jumping around.
Like eventually, it's gonna set in for him that there's no food, right?
Mm-hmm. He's gonna try to take his helmet off.
he's gonna see the other two. Well, they're in the Moonlander. Would they have their helmet on?
They probably would have their helmet on still.
But he's gonna see that the other two are just kind of like sitting there somberly.
What's he gonna do?
Do you think
Like,
he's
ask
gonna
them
like
what's
know
wrong?
that like they're all stuck in that situation together, or do you think he's gonna just start freaking out, like trying to get outside?
I think he'd try to freak out and get outside. Like, he finally sees something that looks like a surface out there. He would probably think, like, you know, associated with, like, oh my god, I could walk out here. I'm not, like,
He doesn't
floating.
know what a vacuum is.
No. Like, he'd still have the helmet on. And he just leaves.
How did we not consider that for like the one that's going out to make the repairs?
He doesn't
Like,
know
he's
what a
gonna like
vacuum
try
is.
to like he's gonna try to take the suit off.
Maybe. Like, unless, like, he grabs at the helmet and, like, he can't really, like, get it off, so he just kind of, like, gives up. But who knows? Maybe he's just, like, a particularly stubborn caveman. Maybe he uses the wrench and tries to crack it open.
Yeah, like he starts hitting the visor.
That'd be the end of him. But, if a caveman did make it to the surface of the moon, he would definitely start jumping around.
You'd be having a blast.
Oh, yeah. Do you think he'd
As long as
figure
he
out how to...
doesn't, Trip.
Let's
Talking about
just-
drive the buggy.
Yeah,
Is that what you're about to say?
Yeah, you think he'd be able to drive the buggy?
I mean, if you could give instructions to like a 5-year-old on how to drive a goat cart, I'm sure you could give a caveman instructions on how to drive the buggy.
Yeah, like Buzz Aldrin, he at least, like, you know, flicks the ignition. He puts the key in. It's got a key ignition. In a vacuum.
Yeah, how's it like achieving combustion with no oxygen?
I don't know. It turns on, and like he shows the caveman, like, by lightly, you know, tapping the one pedal, it moves, the other pedal, like, it breaks. The caveman would probably just, like, he would probably lead foot the gas pedal.
Yeah, you wouldn't understand, like, you have to lightly tap it.
Yeah, he'd be learning.
Dude, what
like,
about
the
when he
nuance.
brakes? Like, when he brakes, he's not gonna know that you like just very lightly push on the brake pedal. He's
Yeah.
gonna slam on the fucking thing, and
he's
they're all
go
gonna get
flying.
whiplash.
He's gonna go flying like 20 feet. Like, kind of slow, but it'll be funny.
You think when Neil Armstrong puts the flag down, that like the caveman's gonna walk over, like pick it up?
Yeah. I think Buzz Aldrin would beat the shit out of the caveman after that happened. The caveman
tackles
would, like,
him.
Yeah, the caveman would lose that fight.
Are you sure about that?
Yes.
Why? This man's known nothing but like physical struggle his whole life. He's been living in the wilderness for 30 years.
Yeah, but isn't Buzz Aldrin like trained
Like
in the
10
military?
feet tall.
I mean, he would be bigger, I'd imagine. This caveman would probably be like, what, like 5'4" or something?
Well, is the caveman a Hyperborean?
I don't think so.
Is he like 6 feet tall eating mammoth meat?
I'm gonna assume he's like 5'4". And I mean, like,
But he's also more savage.
that's true. But I'd say his savagery has kind of been like replaced by fear at this point.
You also have to understand too that they're both on the moon in their spacesuits. So like, how much damage can they really do to each other?
Well, it'd be like
Or is it
fighting.
gonna be like a grudge that they're gonna hold till they get back to the surface?
It's all that a grudge. I'm thinking they'd fight each other like knights. Like, once one got on top of the other, you'd be able to like start like popping shit off that's like important on the suit.
Yeah, but the caveman doesn't know what's important.
Yeah, Buzz Aldrin does. So that's how he'd win the fight. He'd pick up a space rock and start bashing the visor in. And the caveman would just like panic. It's like all the oxygen like goes out, his tongue would start burning, and he dies like a minute later.
Do you think the caveman would ever realize that the suit is protecting them in the first place?
No. I don't think he'd understand. That's way too much to like grasp. There's like several layers of information that he would not be able to gather, like, just based on like his context clues. And that would be his downfall.
What do you think the caveman
on the
would
moon.
think during re-entry?
Screaming. I don't think he'd have any thoughts in his mind. It would just be pure like adrenaline bursting out his veins. how often has a caveman ever reached terminal velocity? I doubt it's ever happened. Maybe like once. Maybe like a caveman like jumped off a mountain. We'll never know for certain.
He would have never lived to tell the tale.
No. He splashes down somewhere in the Pacific, and they just take him out. Once again, just like a 2,000-yard stare. And then they send him back. This caveman that's been on the moon, and then he's just like, all of his family members in the tribe just think he's fucking insane.
Yeah. How would he even explain that?
I don't know. I don't think he really could.
They put me in this weird suit, and then we started moving up, and I passed out, and I woke up, and like once again, it's making the leap that he'd even recognize that the thing below him is Earth, and like is the land that he came from.
Okay. I mean, well, the land that he came from, it's all...
Well, would he pass out during re-entry? The G-force wouldn't be the same, right?
I don't know. I mean, there would definitely be like a huge G-force when the parachute's deployed.
Mm-hmm.
But
if he could stay conscious during the majority of re-entry, then he probably would be able to link that the blue orb was Earth, or it was the place that he came from.
I feel like you'd have to make that link, because like the only place he's ever seen green and blue is, you know, on Earth where he lives. When he goes up there, he's gonna see green and blue and think like tree and water. Like that had to be like where like home is.
And I guess he'd probably see the clouds too.
Yeah, he'd see the clouds. He obviously knows what, you know, the moon and the stars are. So he'd have to consider I am this high up. You know, he would have a decent understanding of like his predicament, but he just wouldn't know all the nuances of like space to save his life.
Once he realized how high up he was, that's probably when the real panic would start. Once like he makes those mental links. Like, holy shit.
Scaring a caveman will be like the future of entertainment.
Yeah, once we get time travel. Why don't we just start taking people from like those uncontacted tribes? Like, we have the cavemen still.
Yeah, we do have the cavemen still. The only problem is that we can't send them like places funny, like World War II. Like, we'd have to just settle with like finding the resources. Space. Yeah, sending them to space. Or finding the resources to like imitate it. Like maybe like sending them to like a reenactment. That'd be like the closest
a Civil
you'd have.
War reenactment.
Yeah. Like that's his like first start.
Just need to get our case together and like make an appeal to
it's like India
the UN.
For the Sentinelese Islanders.
No, we need to make an appeal to the UN to like let us abduct these, because they're internationally protected. So make the appeal to the UN to let us start like abducting them and putting them on space flights.
I wonder how many like yes votes that motion would get. I'm honestly curious.
Like, they'd probably be sick with you instantly. You'd have to try to explain to them just like the potential of comedy that's at hand, and then you might get a few votes after that.
Because you got to vote like yes, no, or abstain. And I'm wondering what countries would actually vote yes, and like how many. Like, would all of them just like vote no? Would most of them abstain because they don't even like think it's like worthy of their time? Like, what countries would vote yes? If any. Somebody has to. Somebody has to.
Well, I think like Russia would, just to spite everyone else. Whatever everyone else is voting for, Russia's voting the opposite.
Okay,
just
so
to spite them.
It's like the Eurasian bloc votes yes,
yeah.
And like we get like a cosmonaut they steal like the Sentinelese Islander, and they bring him up to like the Russian section of the ISS. That still would be very funny. The only downside is that, like, even though they are, you know, quote unquote uncontacted, they've already seen planes. They've technically interacted with like modern stuff and modern people to a degree. So, like, I mean, space will still be 100% new to them, but it's not going to have necessarily the same exact like control reaction as we would a completely fucking like bewildered caveman. Anyway, we might want to wrap this up because we got 2 hours and I kind of have to like take a
Yeah.
shit.
Right. I gotta eat.
So I'm gonna hit pause here or stop.